Hello, the following is a video on how to replace the left front wheel bearing on a 2012 Nissan Versa. I did learn a lot about how to do this from other YouTube videos, so I decided to upload my own. Perhaps you'll find something in this video that you missed elsewhere. In any case, I hope you enjoy the video. If you like, you can leave a comment below. So let's get started. First, e-brake the car, then jack up the right front and put a jack stand under there, but leave the left side on the ground while you loosen the 4 lug nuts. And then you'll take the center nut and the pin holding it in, straighten it out, pull it out, and set the pin aside. You'll want to loosen that middle one while it's still on the ground. Otherwise, it'll spin around and round while you're trying to do it. Now you're good to go ahead and jack it up. With the wheel removed, you can now remove the caliper with a 17mm socket. You'll need to remove 2 bolts in the back, the one on top right here, and then if you flip around, there's one on the bottom right there. Loosen it and take the brake caliper off. And you can use a breaker bar to get it started, and then you can either use your fingers to get it the rest of the way, or if you're having trouble, you can use a ratchet to get it the rest of the way. Once you take off the caliper, hang it up with a bungee cord so it stays out of the way. You can loop it through one of the coils if you like. The next part is removing the rotor. Sometimes it's rusted on there and you might have to pound it a little bit in the center to get it off. However, mine came right off. Hooray. There it is. You'll be removing this part, the wheel bearing. Continue removing the bolt in the middle. You can just use the socket itself to get it the rest of the way out. And put that aside. What you'll need to do is go around to the side and take out the ABS sensor. There it is right behind the dust cover, and you'll need a 10mm ratchet. It'll pop right off, the nut that is, or the bolt rather, but you might need to use a flathead to get the rest of the sensor out. It's a little tricky, and you might have a hard time doing it, but I was able to get mine out without too much trouble. Once you get that out, just set it aside. You won't be putting that in until later. The next thing that you need to do is take off the bolts that hold on the wheel bearing. There's 2 down at the bottom and 1 on top for a total of 3. Now you'll use the 17mm socket again to loosen those, and this is what they look like. Okay, so here's the hardest part. What you have to do now, and I wasn't able to get this on video, is take a hammer and pound the wheel bearing up, down, side to side, and get some penetrating oil in there between here and the dust cover, the metal plate behind. It took me a lot of doing, but it definitely came off after a while. Once you've gotten the wheel bearing off, this is what you're left with. The surface will be cleaned up in a little while. Here in my case, the wheel bearing came off with the dust cover attached, and in a moment we'll remove that, and then it will go back on here. Clean this up in a bit. So if this happens, take the wheel bearing with the dust cover, put it in a vise or somewhere secure. You could take a flathead screwdriver and pry the dust cover off, put the dust cover back on at this point after you clean it up with a little bit of sandpaper, and then put the new wheel bearing back on, just the way you had it before. Just to jump ahead, this is the old one, but at this point I have the new one on, so just picture the new one here. Mount the bearing back onto the knuckle with the 17mm bolts, and then you can use a couple of lug nuts to hold the rotor flush so that you can get the caliper back over and mount the caliper. Then you can remove the lug nuts and continue. Once you get the brake caliper back on, tighten it down. 2 bolts, 17mm. Alright, so right here I had to put this to keep the rotor from rotating while I use the impact gun to tighten up the center bolt. Right here. Then put the pin through. Then put your wheel back on. Tighten down your lug nuts. Drop the car, make sure you didn't leave anything in there, and you're done. Thanks for watching.